In November 1962, Berlin was a city divided, both geographically and psychologically, a living monument to the tension that had come to define the Cold War. On the western side, the streets carried the hum of daily life, trams rattling along rails, children playing in courtyards, shopkeepers arranging their displays with practiced precision. To the east, shadowed by barbed wire, watchtowers, and uniformed sentries, the air carried a different rhythm, controlled, calculated, and oppressive. It was in this environment, where every step could be scrutinized and every interaction observed, that the operation began to take shape. The West Berlin safehouse had been established months earlier, chosen for its proximity to the Friedrichstrasse checkpoint while remaining inconspicuous to passersby. Inside, walls were lined with maps of East Berlin's streets, photographs of key Soviet and Stasi officers, and dossiers detailing personnel movement and routines. Every item had a purpose, every photograph a potential key to understanding a network that had functioned with almost invisible precision. The operatives moved through this space with careful deliberation, unpacking satchels, spreading documents across tables, and cataloging intelligence carried across the border. Each gesture, measured and exact, reflected the constant awareness that human error was the most dangerous variable in the equation. Vogel, the central figure of the operation, had been extracted under circumstances that tested human nerve to the limit. Weeks earlier, he had navigated the labyrinth of East Berlin's streets and checkpoints, each moment of movement a calculated risk. He had memorized patrol patterns, timing his steps to avoid uniformed officers, the slightest miscalculation threatening exposure or arrest. His extraction was the culmination of months of preparation, every detail orchestrated by West German intelligence and supported by CIA operatives embedded in Berlin. Now, in the relative safety of the West, Vogel's presence transformed the safehouse from a preparatory hub into a nerve center of analysis. Each morning, the team reviewed the intelligence Vogel had carried. He had memorized complex routes, schedules of courier movements, and clandestine handoff points used by Soviet officers. His observations had been augmented with photographs taken under duress, coded notes hidden in innocuous objects, and minor details that at first glance appeared irrelevant, but in the context of East Berlin's security apparatus provided critical insight. Analysts methodically cross-referenced each item, noting consistencies, verifying timelines, and cataloging discrepancies. The work was painstaking, not because it was inherently complex, but because it required human vigilance. Every minor oversight could create gaps that the Stasi could exploit, rendering months of effort futile. The psychological toll of the extraction and subsequent intelligence work was ever present. Vogel moved cautiously through the safehouse, his body conditioned by months of stress and hypervigilance. His gaze flickered toward windows, doors, and corners, reflexive scanning born of necessity rather than fear. Anna Kruger and Friedrich Lang, operatives responsible for cataloging and verifying intelligence, displayed similar habits, their awareness sharpened by constant exposure to potential danger. The operation's success depended not only on the documents and photographs, but on the human capacity to remain composed under prolonged pressure. West Berlin itself was a paradox of ordinary life and extraordinary tension. Streets were filled with mundane activity, cars weaving through traffic, shoppers negotiating purchases, office workers hurrying along sidewalks. Yet every observation carried weight, each passerby potentially a Stasi informant, every glance a possible threat. Operatives navigated this environment with practiced subtlety, blending into daily routines while maintaining the discipline necessary to protect their mission. Surveillance was constant, both internal and external, with each step measured against potential compromise. Cataloging the intelligence required rigorous attention to detail. Photographs of Soviet offices were annotated with dates, times, and personnel observations. Courier schedules were plotted on maps, routes and contingencies considered for potential disruption. Vogel's notes, initially cryptic, were decoded, correlated, and verified against independent sources. Analysts worked in shifts, ensuring that human fatigue did not compromise accuracy. Each team member understood that human judgment was the linchpin of operational security. Even the most precise documents were vulnerable if interpreted or handled carelessly. The Stasi, ever methodical, began to notice anomalies in East Berlin. Officer Klaus Dietrich reviewed checkpoint logs, scrutinized exit and entry records, and noted inconsistencies in the documentation of individuals who had recently crossed the border. Despite the absence of concrete evidence, Dietrich's investigation intensified. Surveillance footage was examined frame by frame, every minor irregularity analyzed. The West Berlin safehouse, while physically distant, remained under the unseen scrutiny of East German intelligence, making human discipline and operational secrecy essential to survival. Preparation for potential contingencies occupied the team's hours. Simulations were conducted to anticipate Stasi responses to various intelligence leaks or unexpected exposures. Movement through Berlin, both east and west, was rehearsed, routes memorized, and exit strategies refined. Each exercise emphasized the human element, reactions to stress, capacity for quick judgment, and the psychological resilience necessary to perform under extreme pressure. The operatives were trained not only to gather intelligence, but to maintain composure, to mask fear, and to navigate environments saturated with risk. Vogel's debriefings were exhaustive. Analysts in secure rooms questioned the sequence of movements, reconstructed timelines, and tested the consistency of his recollections. Each answer required verification, cross-checking against photographs, surveillance logs, and independent observations. Human memory, while invaluable, was fallible. Repetition and documentation ensured that even minor errors could be corrected. The safehouse became a crucible where human cognition, observation, and endurance were as critical as any technology or document. As weeks passed, the intelligence began to shape strategic decisions. The information revealed weaknesses in Soviet logistics and identified vulnerabilities in East German surveillance operations. Analysts plotted courier routes, tracked personnel, and assessed the potential for intervention. Each recommendation relied on the accuracy of human observation, the careful recording of minutiae, and the disciplined maintenance of operational security. The interplay of human skill and organizational planning was evident in every calculated move, every strategic adjustment, and every decision to act or withhold action. Even as operational objectives were met, the human consequences persisted. Vogel exhibited signs of lingering stress, moving cautiously and maintaining habits developed under constant threat. Kruger and Lang, despite professional composure, demonstrated subtle manifestations of vigilance, checking surroundings, rehearsing contingencies mentally, and prioritizing operational security over convenience. Weber, overseeing the process, understood that success in intelligence work was inseparable from the human cost. Endurance, composure, and the capacity to manage fear were central to both survival and achievement. Operational security extended beyond immediate intelligence. The team maintained strict routines to prevent inadvertent exposure. Communications were encrypted and conducted through secure channels. Movements were measured and deliberate, and interactions with external analysts were carefully managed. Each action reinforced the understanding that human vigilance was as critical as any technological safeguard. The margin for error remained razor-thin, and the consequences of failure extended far beyond the immediate participants. As intelligence reports were disseminated to NATO and allied agencies, the practical impact of the operation became apparent. Soviet courier networks were disrupted, sensitive exchanges delayed, and strategic planning adjusted based on the information gathered. The success of the operation was not measured in immediate spectacle, but in the quiet, cumulative effect of human diligence and precision. Each decision, each carefully maintained habit, and each observation contributed to the larger strategic advantage. Months after the initial extraction, the team in West Berlin reflected the resilience and adaptability of humans under pressure. Vogel gradually regained a sense of normalcy, though habits of vigilance persisted. Kruger and Lang continued meticulous documentation and analysis, understanding that even post-extraction, intelligence work required continuous attention to detail. Weber's oversight ensured that operational integrity was preserved, human error minimized, and the psychological well-being of the team supported. The Stasi continued their investigation, methodical and patient, reconstructing events from limited data. Dietrich's frustrations highlighted the effectiveness of human discipline, preparation, and the precise orchestration of movement and documentation. The West Berlin team remained a step ahead, their success rooted not in luck, but in the careful calibration of human action, judgment, and endurance. The ripple effects of the operation extended far beyond Berlin. NATO strategists incorporated Vogel's intelligence into planning for potential Soviet interventions across Europe. Courier vulnerabilities allowed Western intelligence to anticipate and disrupt movements of sensitive material, creating operational advantages in communications and counterintelligence. Each actionable insight had been derived from careful observation and human judgment, illustrating that even the most sophisticated strategic networks depended ultimately on the discipline, skill, and resilience of individuals. Within the West Berlin safehouse, human factors continued to shape outcomes. Vogel's mental acuity and careful recollection remained invaluable. Analysts refined their assessments based on the subtle cues he had recorded under duress. The behavior of uniformed officers, the timing of document transfers, the frequency of patrol rotations. Human memory, disciplined and corroborated through documentation, created an intelligence network that could anticipate moves before they occurred. Every action, every note, and every observation became part of a chain that demonstrated the critical importance of human agency in espionage. The success of the operation also reshaped internal protocols. West German and CIA operatives developed new training methods emphasizing human endurance, psychological resilience, and composure under stress. Simulations became more detailed, incorporating environmental and psychological variables designed to prepare agents for conditions of extreme duress. The lessons learned in Berlin informed subsequent Cold War operations, establishing that intelligence work was as much about human capacity as technological capability. By the end of 1963, the operation's long-term impact was clear. The West had gained insight into Soviet and East German methods, allowing for proactive countermeasures and strategic advantages. The Safehouse team, now seasoned through months of sustained effort, embodied the human-centric skill and composure necessary for success. Vogel's extraction, initially a high-stakes maneuver, became a textbook example of coordinated human judgment, meticulous planning, and operational precision. In the broader theater of the Cold War, Berlin remained a city of tension and constant surveillance, yet the extraction of Vogel and the subsequent intelligence gathering had demonstrated the enduring significance of human factors: observation, memory, discipline, and resilience. Technology could record and transmit, documents could be forged and transmitted, but the ultimate determinant of operational success remained human cognition and action. The operatives returned to structured routines, yet vigilance remained ingrained. Each movement, each decision, and each observation carried the weight of prior experience, reinforcing the delicate balance between action and caution. The Cold War's shadow endured, but in this operation, human agency had turned risk into calculated advantage. Every gesture, every note, and every careful observation had contributed to a chain of events that altered the operational landscape, proving that even in an era dominated by ideology and technology, humans remain the decisive element in intelligence work. In West Berlin, the safe house eventually quieted, yet the invisible threads of the operations stretched across the city and beyond, shaping policy, strategy, and perception. Intelligence was never a singular event. It was the sum of countless human actions, performed with precision, care, and endurance. The extraction of Vogel and the subsequent ripple effects stood as a testament to the enduring role of human skill, judgment, and resilience in shaping the outcome of the Cold War. The story of Berlin in 1962 was not merely one of geography, ideology, or technology. It was a story of humans operating at the limits of vigilance and composure. The extraction, the analysis, and the strategic application of intelligence highlighted the profound interdependence of human factors in operational success. The Cold War would continue, its battles often invisible, but the human-centered triumph in Berlin demonstrated that careful observation, preparation, and endurance could transform uncertainty into strategic advantage.